In a distant corner of the galaxy, far beyond the reach of Earth's maps and charts, humanity's exploration fleet drifted silently through the void. The crew aboard the small research vessel had been tasked with investigating an uncharted planet that had recently appeared on their scanners. It was a strange world, cloaked in thick clouds and surrounded by debris from ancient asteroid collisions. Among the crew was Alex Carter, a young engineer known for his curiosity and knack for solving problems. Alex wasn't like the others on the ship. While most were content to follow orders and analyze data from a safe distance, he preferred getting his hands dirty. Whether it was fixing a broken piece of equipment or tinkering with outdated tech, Alex always found himself drawn to challenges. So when the ship's captain announced they would be sending down probes to gather information about the mysterious planet, Alex volunteered to join the team heading to the surface. The descent was rough. The planet's atmosphere was turbulent, and the winds howled as the shuttle touched down on a rocky plain. As soon as they landed, Alex stepped out, his boots crunching against the uneven ground. The air was thin but breathable, thanks to advanced filtration masks provided by the crew. Around him, towering cliffs loomed over the landscape, casting long shadows under the dim light of the planet's twin suns. It felt otherworldly, almost dreamlike. While the rest of the team set up equipment to scan the area, Alex wandered a short distance away to inspect a damaged drone that had malfunctioned during the landing. He knelt beside the battered machine, pulling out tools from his belt. His focus was sharp, his mind entirely on the task at hand. But just as he began repairing the drone, a low rumble echoed through the air. At first, he thought it might be the wind, or perhaps the ground shifting beneath him. But then he heard it again. This time, it was unmistakable. A deep growl, resonating from somewhere nearby. Alex froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Slowly, he turned his head toward the source of the sound. Emerging from the shadows between two massive boulders was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. Its body was enormous, covered in sleek, obsidian-like scales that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Long claws extended from its powerful limbs, and its eyes glowed with an eerie intelligence. This was no ordinary animal. It was the Vorak, a legendary predator feared across the galaxy for its unmatched ferocity and cunning. For a moment, neither Alex nor the creature moved. Time seemed to stand still as they stared at each other. Every instinct in Alex's body screamed at him to run, to call for help, to do anything but stay put. Yet something held him there. Maybe it was the way the Vorak tilted its massive head, studying him with those piercing eyes. Or maybe it was the fact that, despite its terrifying appearance, the creature hadn't attacked yet. Instead of lunging forward, the Vorak simply stood there, watching Alex with what could only be described as curiosity. It didn't bare its teeth or raise its claws. Instead, it let out another low growl, softer this time, almost like a question. Alex swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing. Against all logic, he raised one hand slowly, palm open, in a gesture of peace. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then, to his astonishment, the Vorak took a cautious step forward. It stopped just a few feet away, close enough for Alex to feel the heat radiating off its scaled body. He dared not move, barely even breathed. The Vorak lowered its head slightly, tilting it, as if examining him more closely. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature turned and disappeared back into the shadows, leaving Alex alone on the rocky plain. Shaken but alive, Alex returned to the team, who were busy collecting samples and running tests. When he told them what had happened, they looked at him skeptically. "You're sure it didn't try to attack you?" asked Commander Laura Hayes, raising an eyebrow. Alex nodded firmly. "It didn't," he said. It just watched me." Though no one believed him completely, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had occurred. That encounter stayed with him, replaying in his mind long after they left the planet's surface. Little did he know, it was only the beginning of a journey that would change not only his life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Back aboard the orbital station, Alex struggled to convince his teammates about what he had seen. The crew gathered in the main chamber, a circular room filled with screens displaying data from the planet below. Commander Laura Hayes stood at the center, her arms crossed as she listened to Alex recount the encounter with the Vorak. Her expression was unreadable, though her sharp gaze suggested skepticism. "I'm telling you, it didn't attack," Alex said, his voice steady despite the doubt in the room. "It just watched me, like it was trying to figure out what I was." Nathan Blake, the ship's head of security, snorted. "That's exactly what a predator does before it strikes," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You got lucky, Carter. Next time, it won't be so forgiving." Alex frowned but didn't argue. He knew Nathan wasn't the type to believe anything unless it involved weapons or threats. Across the table, biologist Ryan Scott tapped a pen against his notebook, his brow furrowed in thought. "It's strange," Ryan admitted. "If the Vorak are as aggressive as we've heard, why wouldn't it attack? You were alone, unarmed, easy prey." "Maybe it wasn't hungry," Mayor Roberts chimed in, her tone light but curious. As the tech specialist, Mia had a knack for finding patterns where others saw chaos. She glanced at Alex, her dark eyes narrowing slightly. "Or maybe there's something we don't know about them yet." Commander Hayes sighed, rubbing her temples. "Speculation isn't going to get us anywhere," she said firmly. "We need hard evidence. Until then, I want everyone focused on analyzing the samples we collected. And Carter," she turned to Alex, her tone softening just a fraction, "stay away from the surface. That's an order." But Alex couldn't let it go. That night, while the rest of the crew slept, he slipped into the observation deck. The large window offered a breathtaking view of the planet below, its swirling clouds glowing faintly under the light of its twin suns. Alex stared at it, replaying every detail of his encounter with the Vorak. There had been something about the way it moved, the way it looked at him, not like prey, but like an equal. Determined to find answers, Alex rigged up a few drones with enhanced cameras and sensors. Using equipment borrowed from Mia's workshop, he programmed them to patrol areas near where he'd met the creature. Over the next several days, he monitored their feeds obsessively, searching for any sign of the Vorak. Most of the footage showed nothing unusual, just barren landscapes and occasional bursts of wind. But one evening, something caught his eye. On one of the screens, the Vorak appeared again. It moved gracefully across the rocky terrain, its massive body surprisingly silent despite its size. What made Alex's breath catch, however, was what happened next. The drone had been programmed to mimic certain movements, a test feature Mia had added, and as it rotated slightly, the Vorak paused. Then, slowly, it raised one of its clawed limbs in a motion eerily similar to the drone's. Alex leaned closer, his pulse quickening. Was it possible? Could the Vorak have been imitating the machine? He rewound the footage, watching the sequence over and over. Each time, the result was the same. The Vorak mimicked the drone's movement. It wasn't random behavior. It was deliberate. Excited but unsure how to present his findings, Alex decided to show the footage to Ryan first. The biologist was less likely to dismiss it outright, and maybe he could help make sense of it. When Ryan arrived in the observation deck, Alex played the clip for him. At first, Ryan was silent, his eyes glued to the screen. Then, finally, he spoke. "This changes things," he said quietly. "If the Vorak can learn by observing, if it's capable of imitation, then it's far more intelligent than we assumed." Alex nodded, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. For the first time, someone else believed him. Together, they'd brought the footage to Commander Hayes, who listened carefully before nodding. "All right," she said after a long pause. "Let's assume this is real. What do you propose we do about it?" Alex hesitated, knowing his next words would be risky. "I think we should try communicating with it," he said. "If it's smart enough to imitate, maybe it can understand us too." The room fell silent. Even Ryan looked uneasy, glancing between Alex and the commander. Finally, Hayes exhaled sharply. "Fine," she said. "But if this goes south, it's on your head, Carter." Though the approval came with conditions, Alex felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't alone in the galaxy, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as equals. And perhaps the key to unlocking that future lay not in fear, but in understanding. The next morning, Alex prepared for his return to the planet's surface. He knew this trip would be different from the last. This time, he wasn't just going to observe. He was going to attempt something no human had ever done before: communicate with a Vorak. The idea was thrilling, but also terrifying. Every step of the way, Alex reminded himself of what was at stake. If he succeeded, it could change everything. If he failed, well, he didn't want to think about that. Mia Roberts helped him rig up a translator device, a small handheld gadget designed to analyze and interpret sounds. It wasn't perfect. It had been built for simpler languages, but Mia assured him it was their best shot. "Just don't get eaten before we can test it," she joked, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Alex forced a laugh, trying to mask his nerves. Commander Hayes gave him strict instructions: stay in constant contact with the orbital station, avoid risky situations, and retreat immediately if things went wrong. She also assigned Ryan Scott to accompany him, much to Alex's relief. Having someone else there, especially someone as level-headed as Ryan, made the mission feel less daunting. When they reached the surface, the air felt heavier than Alex remembered. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Alex carried the translator in one hand and a portable scanner in the other, while Ryan held a recording device to document everything. They moved cautiously, scanning the area for any sign of the Vorak. It didn't take long. From the corner of his eye, Alex spotted movement, a flash of dark scales disappearing behind a boulder. His heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. Slowly, he raised the translator and activated it, letting out a soft hum as the device began emitting basic tones. The sound echoed through the stillness, unnatural against the backdrop of wind and silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Vorak emerged, stepping into view with the same deliberate grace Alex had seen before. Its glowing eyes locked onto him, and Alex felt a chill run down his spine. But instead of retreating or attacking, the creature stopped a short distance away, watching them intently. "Okay," Alex whispered to Ryan, his voice barely audible. "Here goes nothing." He pressed a button on the translator, causing it to emit a series of low-frequency tones. The Vorak tilted its head, its sharp gaze fixed on the device. After a few seconds, it let out a deep growl, the sound reverberating through the ground beneath their feet. The translator processed the noise, attempting to decode it. To Alex's amazement, fragments of meaning began to appear on the screen, simple patterns that hinted at structure and intent. "It's working," Ryan murmured, his voice tinged with awe. "This thing actually understands us, or at least, it's trying to." Encouraged, Alex continued experimenting. He adjusted the tones, mimicking the rhythm of the Vorak's growls. Each time, the creature responded, its reactions growing more complex. At one point, it even repeated a sequence Alex had played, matching the pitch and cadence almost perfectly. The realization hit him like a wave. The Vorak wasn't just intelligent, it was capable of learning and adapting in real time. As the hours passed, Alex grew bolder. He stepped closer, keeping the translator between himself and the creature. The Vorak didn't flinch, its massive body remaining still as it observed him. Finally, Alex decided to take the biggest risk yet. Lowering the device slightly, he extended his free hand, palm open, in a gesture of peace. The Vorak hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing. For a tense moment, Alex thought he'd gone too far. But then, slowly, the creature lowered its head, bringing it closer to his outstretched hand. Though they didn't touch, the act felt monumental. A silent agreement, a bridge being built between two vastly different beings. When they returned to the orbital station, Alex and Ryan were met with stunned silence. The footage and data they brought back left no room for doubt. The Vorak was far more than a mindless predator. It was intelligent, communicative, and perhaps even curious about humanity. Commander Hayes listened carefully as Alex explained what had happened, her expression unreadable. "This changes everything," she said finally, her voice heavy with both wonder and concern. "If word gets out, every faction in the galaxy will want a piece of this." Alex nodded, knowing she was right. But for now, all that mattered was the connection they'd made. Somewhere on that distant planet, a bond had formed, one that could reshape the future of humanity and the Vorak alike. Over the next few weeks, Alex spent nearly every waking moment on the planet's surface, working to strengthen the bond he'd formed with the Vorak. He began calling the creature Kale, a name inspired by an old Earth legend about protectors who stood between humans and danger. It felt fitting, considering how Kale had shown restraint instead of aggression during their encounters. To Alex's surprise, the Vorak seemed to respond positively to the name, tilting its massive head slightly whenever he said it. Each day, Alex brought new tools and devices designed to improve communication. Maya Roberts worked tirelessly in the orbital station's lab, tweaking the translator to better interpret Cal's growls and tones. Slowly but surely, patterns began to emerge, simple phrases that hinted at emotions like curiosity, caution, and even trust. Alex recorded everything, documenting each interaction in detail. By now, Ryan Scott had become a regular part of these sessions, helping analyze Cal's behavior while keeping a watchful eye for any signs of danger. As their understanding grew, so did Cal's willingness to engage. At first, the Vorak would only mimic sounds or repeat sequences Alex played through the translator. But soon, it started responding differently, altering its growls in ways that suggested it was experimenting with language. One breakthrough came when Alex accidentally dropped his toolkit, causing a loud clang against the rocky ground. Startled, he froze, expecting Cal to react defensively. Instead, the Vorak let out a low rumble that the translator interpreted as something akin to reassurance. It was as if Cal was saying, "It's okay." The crew back on the orbital station watched the footage with growing fascination. Elena Meyer, one of the ship's biologists, couldn't contain her excitement. "This is incredible," she said during one of their debriefings. "If we can establish a real line of communication, we might learn things about the Vorak that could rewrite everything we know about them. And maybe even ourselves." Not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Nathan Blake, the head of security, remained skeptical. "You're putting too much faith in this thing," he warned during a heated discussion. "What happens when it decides we're not worth the effort? Or worse, what if it turns on us?" Alex didn't argue. He understood Nathan's concerns, but he also knew Cal wasn't acting like a predator anymore. At least, not around him. The Vorak's body language had shifted over time. Its movements were less tense, its glowing eyes softer. It no longer prowled or growled unless provoked. Instead, it followed Alex curiously, almost protectively, as though it saw him as part of its world now. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the landscape in shades of deep orange and purple, Alex decided to test another theory. He had noticed that Cal often reacted to specific gestures, like raising a hand or tilting his head. This time, he tried something new, sitting cross-legged on the ground, completely still and waiting. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Cal approached, lowering itself onto the rocks beside him. Its massive form dwarfed Alex, yet it moved with surprising gentleness, careful not to crowd him. Ryan, watching from a safe distance, whispered into his communicator, "This is unprecedented. I've never seen a Vorak behave like this before." Neither had anyone else. Word of Alex's progress spread quickly among the crew, sparking debates about what it meant for humanity's place in the galaxy. Some, like Commander Laura Hayes, saw potential in forming an alliance with the Vorek species. Others, like Nathan, viewed the entire situation as a liability. Despite the differing opinions, one thing was clear. Kale had earned Alex's trust, and perhaps the beginnings of theirs. By the end of the month, Alex and Kale had developed a routine. They spent hours together, learning each other's signals and sounds. Kale even began leading Alex to certain parts of the planet, showing him hidden caves and natural formations that held significance. Though Alex couldn't fully understand why, he sensed that Kale was sharing pieces of its world with him, a gesture of friendship unlike anything he'd ever imagined. As they sat side by side one night under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, Alex felt a profound sense of connection. In that moment, fear and doubt faded away, replaced by hope. Maybe humanity didn't have to conquer or dominate to find its place in the universe. Maybe, just maybe, it could belong alongside others, as equals. It was during one of their usual sessions that Alex first noticed something unusual. Kale, who had grown increasingly comfortable around him, suddenly became restless. The Vorak's glowing eyes darted toward the horizon, its ears twitching as though listening for something far away. At first, Alex thought it might be reacting to a predator or some other natural threat. But when he scanned the area with his equipment, nothing appeared out of the ordinary. "Kale, what is it?" Alex asked softly, holding up the translator in hopes of catching any sounds the creature made. Instead of responding, Kale stood abruptly and moved toward higher ground, glancing back at Alex as if urging him to follow. Confused but trusting the bond they'd built, Alex signaled to Ryan, who was monitoring from a safe distance, and began climbing after the Vorek. From the top of a rocky ridge, Alex finally saw what had caught Cal's attention. In the distance, several ships descended through the planet's atmosphere, their sleek designs unlike anything human-made. These weren't exploration vessels. They were hunters. Each ship bore jagged markings that Alex recognized from reports, symbols associated with a faction known for targeting rare and dangerous species. They had come for the Vorek. Alex's stomach tightened. He turned to Kale, whose body was tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. "They're here for you," he murmured, though he knew Kale couldn't fully understand him. Still, the Vorek seemed to sense his concern, letting out a low growl that carried both warning and unease. Back at the orbital station, Alex wasted no time relaying the news to Commander Hayes and the rest of the crew. The room buzzed with tension as everyone processed the implications. "If those hunters find Kale, they'll kill it," Alina Meyer said, her voice sharp with urgency. "We can't let that happen." "But what do you expect us to do?" Nathan Blake shot back, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "Risk our lives for a wild animal? That's insane." "It's not just an animal," Alex interrupted, his tone firm. "Kale trusts us. It's shown us more intelligence and cooperation than anyone thought possible. If we abandon it now, we're no better than the hunters." Commander Hayes held up a hand to silence the rising argument. Her expression was grim but resolute. "We don't have much time," she said. "If we're going to act, we need a plan, and fast." Alex suggested using the planet's terrain to their advantage. Kale already knew the landscape well, and with its help, they could guide it to safer areas while avoiding direct confrontation with the hunters. Ryan agreed, adding that the drones they'd been using to study the planet could serve as distractions, luring the hunters away from Cal's location. The team sprang into action. While Mia Roberts worked on reprogramming the drones to emit false signals, Alex prepared to return to the surface with Ryan. Before leaving, Commander Hayes pulled Alex aside. "This is your call, Carter," she said quietly. "But remember, if things go wrong, we may not be able to save you." Alex nodded, swallowing hard. He understood the risks, but turning away wasn't an option. When they reached the planet, Kale was waiting, Its massive form crouched low as it watched the skies anxiously. Seeing Alex approach, it let out a soft rumble, almost like a plea. Alex patted the translator strapped to his belt. "We're not giving up on you, Kale," he promised. Using the drones as decoys, they led Cal through narrow canyons and dense clusters of rock formations, places where the hunters' ships would struggle to maneuver. The strategy worked, at least for a while. Explosions echoed in the distance as the hunters fired at the drones, temporarily distracted, but it was only a matter of time before they realized the trick. As night fell, Alex and Ryan guided Cal to a hidden cave system, its entrance concealed by thick vines and jagged stones. Inside, the air was cool and damp, offering a temporary refuge. Cal settled near the back, its glowing eyes dimmed to avoid detection. Alex sat beside it, his heart pounding as he listened for any sign of pursuit. For hours, they waited in tense silence. Finally, Ryan's communicator crackled to life. "The hunters are moving east," came Mia's voice. "Looks like they've lost your trail. For now." Relief washed over Alex, but it was short-lived. This reprieve wouldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the hunters would return, and next time, they might not be so lucky. As he looked at Kale, Alex vowed silently that he wouldn't stop fighting, not until the Vorak was truly safe. The hunters returned at dawn, their ships cutting through the mist like predatory birds circling prey. Alex and Ryan had spent the night in the cave with Kale, taking turns keeping watch while trying to rest. Neither of them had slept much. The distant hum of engines grew louder as the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. "They're spreading out," Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of his scanner. He pointed to a cluster of red dots on the screen, each one representing a hunter's ship. "They know we're hiding somewhere. It's only a matter of time before they find us." Alex glanced at Cal, who was crouched near the entrance of the cave, its massive body tense and alert. The Vorak's glowing eyes scanned the area outside, catching every movement. Despite its calm demeanor, Alex could sense the tension radiating from it. Kale wasn't afraid, but it was ready to fight. "We can't stay here," Alex said, gripping the translator tightly. "If they corner us in this cave, we're done for." Ryan nodded, though his expression was grim. "We'll have to make a run for it. But where do we go? They've already searched most of the open areas." Alex hesitated, then turned to Kale. "Do you know a way out?" he asked, knowing the creature couldn't fully understand him, but hoping it might pick up on his intent. To his surprise, Kale let out a low growl and moved deeper into the cave, stopping briefly to look back at them. It was clear Kale wanted them to follow. "Guess we're trusting it again," Ryan muttered, hoisting his gear. Together, they trailed behind the Vorak as it led them through twisting tunnels and narrow passages. The air grew colder the deeper they went, and the walls of the cave became slick with moisture. At times, the path was so tight that Alex had to duck to avoid hitting his head, but Kale moved with confidence, as if it had traveled these tunnels many times before. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like jagged teeth, and a shallow stream ran through the center, reflecting the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the rocks. Kale paused near the water, letting out a soft rumble that seemed almost satisfied. "This place must mean something to it," Alex said, looking around in awe. "Maybe it's a safe zone or a meeting point for other Voraks." Before Ryan could respond, the distant roar of engines echoed through the tunnels. The hunters had found the cave system. "We need to move," Ryan urged, his voice sharp with urgency. Kale didn't hesitate. With a powerful leap, it bounded toward a narrow opening on the far side of the chamber, pausing briefly to ensure Alex and Ryan were following. They sprinted after it, their footsteps splashing through the stream as the sound of explosions grew closer. Behind them, chunks of rock tumbled down, sealing off parts of the tunnel as the hunters blasted their way through. As they neared the exit, Alex spotted an opportunity. The path ahead opened into a steep ravine, its sides lined with loose boulders and jagged edges. "Kale, wait," he called out, pointing to the ravine. Understanding dawned in the Vorac's eyes, and it let out a deep growl of approval. Working together, Alex, Ryan, and Kale triggered a small landslide, sending rocks tumbling down into the ravine just as the hunters' ships appeared overhead. One of the vessels clipped its wing on a falling boulder, spiraling out of control before crashing into the canyon below. The others pulled back, their pilots likely realizing the terrain was too treacherous to navigate safely. For now, they were safe. Panting heavily, Alex leaned against a rock, watching as Kale stood tall, surveying the scene with quiet pride. The Vorac had trusted them, and in return, they had fought alongside it, not as humans versus a beast, but as allies. As the dust settled, Alex felt a surge of determination. This wasn't over. The hunters would regroup and come back stronger. But for the first time, Alex knew they weren't alone. With Kale by their side, they stood a chance, not just to survive, but to protect something far greater than themselves. The victory in the ravine was short-lived. Though they had managed to drive off the hunters temporarily, Alex knew it was only a matter of time before they returned with reinforcements. The crash of one of their ships would not stop them. It would only make them angrier. As the team regrouped near the edge of the canyon, Alex turned to Kale, who stood silently beside him, its massive form casting a long shadow under the pale light of the twin suns. "We need to end this," Alex said, his voice firm despite the exhaustion weighing him down. "If we keep running, they'll eventually catch us. But if we fight back, maybe we can turn the tables." Ryan frowned, glancing at the wreckage below. "Fight back? Against those ships? We don't have weapons strong enough to take them down." "We don't need weapons," Alex replied, his mind racing. "We have Kale, and we know this planet better than they do. If we use its terrain and Kale's instincts, we can trap them." Kale tilted its head slightly, as if listening to Alex's words. Though it couldn't fully understand human speech, it seemed to grasp the intent behind his tone. It let out a low growl, nodding its massive head slowly. Over the next hour, Alex, Ryan, and Kale worked together to plan their counterattack. Using the translator, Alex communicated basic ideas to Kale, pointing out key locations on the landscape where they could set traps. Kale responded with sharp barks and gestures, confirming its understanding. By the time the hunters' ships reappeared in the sky, their strategy was ready. The first phase involved luring the hunters into a narrow valley surrounded by steep cliffs. Alex and Ryan used drones equipped with noise emitters to mimic Kale's growls, drawing the ships toward the designated area. From their vantage point high above, they watched as the hunters took the bait, their vessels descending cautiously into the valley. "Now, Kale," Alex whispered, signaling to the Vorac. With a powerful roar, Kale surged forward, its massive body moving with surprising speed. It reached the edge of the valley, just as the hunters realized they were being led into a trap. One ship tried to retreat, but Kale leaped onto a nearby cliff, triggering a cascade of boulders that blocked the exit. The hunters were trapped. But the battle wasn't over yet. Two ships remained airborne, firing energy blasts at Kale and the surrounding terrain. Alex and Ryan scrambled for cover, dodging debris as explosions rocked the ground beneath them. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm Alex. Then he saw Kale leap onto one of the cliffs, using its claws to scale the rock face with incredible agility. In seconds, it was close enough to swipe at one of the hovering ships, tearing through its hull with a single strike. The vessel spiraled out of control, crashing into the valley below. The final ship hovered uncertainly, its pilot clearly torn between attacking and fleeing. Seizing the opportunity, Alex activated a second drone, programming it to emit a loud, disorienting frequency. The sound echoed across the valley, confusing the hunters and causing their ship to wobble unsteadily. Kale didn't hesitate. With another mighty leap, it closed the distance and delivered a crushing blow to the ship's engine, sending it plummeting to the ground. When the dust settled, silence fell over the valley. The hunters were defeated, their ships destroyed or disabled. Alex climbed down from his hiding spot, his legs trembling with relief and adrenaline. Kale stood in the center of the wreckage, its chest rising and falling heavily as it surveyed the scene. Despite the chaos, there was no sign of aggression in its posture, only quiet resolve. Ryan joined Alex, his face pale but his expression awestruck. "I can't believe that actually worked," he muttered. "You and Kale, you're something else." Alex smiled faintly, though his thoughts were already turning to what came next. The hunters wouldn't be the last threat they faced, and news of this encounter would spread quickly. Word of a human working alongside a Vorak would reach every corner of the galaxy, and not everyone would see it as a positive development. As Alex approached Kale, he placed a hand gently on its scaled shoulder. "We did it," he said softly, "but this is just the beginning. Things are going to change, for both of us." Kale let out a low rumble, almost like a purr, and lowered its head slightly, acknowledging Alex's words. Together, they stood amidst the ruins of the battle, two unlikely allies bound by trust and shared purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. News of the battle spread faster than Alex could have imagined. Within days, reports of a human team defeating skilled hunters with the help of a Vorak reached not only nearby star systems, but also distant corners of the galaxy. The story was met with disbelief, skepticism, and perhaps most surprising to Alex, a growing sense of curiosity. For centuries, the Vorak had been seen as mindless monsters, creatures to be feared or hunted for sport. But now, thanks to Alex and Kale, people were beginning to question everything they thought they knew. Back on the orbital station, the crew found themselves at the center of attention. Ships from various factions began arriving in orbit around the planet, requesting communication with the team. Some claimed to seek peaceful dialogue. Others made thinly veiled threats, demanding access to the Vorak. Commander Hayes worked tirelessly to manage the influx of messages, her face etched with tension as she navigated the delicate diplomatic minefield. "They're treating us like we've discovered some kind of treasure," Nathan Blake grumbled during one of their briefings. "But all we've done is stirred up trouble." "It's more than that," Alina Meyer countered, her voice calm but firm. "What Alex and Kale have shown isn't just about survival. It's proof that cooperation between species is possible. That's something worth protecting." Alex listened quietly, his mind racing. He hadn't expected this level of scrutiny. At first, he had hoped their actions would inspire change, showing the galaxy that the Vorak weren't mindless beasts. But now he worried about what might happen next. Would these factions respect the bond he'd formed with Kale, or would they see it as an opportunity to exploit? Kale itself seemed aware of the shift. When Alex returned to the planet's surface, the Vorak greeted him with a low growl that carried a note of unease. It paced back and forth, its glowing eyes scanning the skies above. Alex knelt beside it, placing a hand on its side. "I know you feel it too," he said softly, "but we'll figure this out, together." Despite the chaos, there were moments of hope. A delegation from a neutral faction arrived, led by an ambassador named Lyra Solon. Her species, known for their role as mediators in intergalactic disputes, sought to broker peace talks between humanity and the Vorak. She met with Alex and Commander Hayes aboard the orbital station, her demeanor calm and respectful. "We understand your concerns," Lyra said, her voice smooth and measured. "But if we can establish open lines of communication, it could pave the way for alliances, not just with the Vorak, but with other misunderstood species across the galaxy." Commander Hayes nodded cautiously. "We're willing to try, but any agreement must prioritize the safety of both our people and the Vorak." As discussions continued, Alex spent more time on the planet, working with Kale to refine their communication methods. The translator device improved daily, allowing them to exchange increasingly complex ideas. One breakthrough came when Kale used a series of growls to describe its own kind, not as predators, but as protectors of their world. This revelation stunned the team, reshaping their understanding of the Vorax role in the ecosystem. Meanwhile, public opinion began to shift. Images of Alex standing alongside Kale circulated widely, sparking debates about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some praised his courage, calling him a pioneer of interspecies cooperation. Others criticized him, arguing that befriending a predator was reckless and dangerous. Amid the noise, Alex stayed focused on the task at hand, ensuring Kale's freedom and securing a future where humans and Vorak could coexist peacefully. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Alex sat with Kale near the edge of a rocky cliff. Below them stretched the vast expanse of the planet, its rugged beauty untouched by the turmoil above. Kale let out a soft rumble, nudging Alex gently with its head. "Things are going to get harder before they get better," Alex admitted, looking into the creature's glowing eyes. "But I promise, I won't let anyone hurt you. Not while I'm here." Kale responded with another low growl, almost like a sigh. In that moment, Alex felt a deep connection, a bond forged not just through shared battles, but through mutual trust and understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together, as equals. The peace talks progressed slowly, but they were moving in the right direction. Ambassador Lyra Solon worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between humanity and the Vorak, using Alex and Kale as living proof that cooperation was possible. Each session brought new questions, challenges, and breakthroughs. The translator device, now more advanced thanks to Maya Roberts' constant improvements, allowed for deeper exchanges between Alex and Kale. Through these conversations, Alex uncovered truths about the Vorak that shocked even him. Kale revealed fragments of its history, not through words, but through images and sounds interpreted by the translator. Long ago, the Vorak had been peaceful guardians of their planet, living in harmony with their environment. They hunted only to survive and protected the land from threats both natural and alien. But centuries of persecution changed them. Other species, driven by greed or fear, had hunted the Vorak nearly to extinction, forcing them to adapt into the fierce predators they were today. What Alex had mistaken for aggression was actually a deeply ingrained survival instinct, a legacy of pain and loss. This revelation struck a chord with the crew, especially Alina Meyer. "They weren't always like this," she said during one of their debriefings. "We did this to them. We turned them into what we feared most." Commander Hayes nodded grimly. "And now we have a chance to make it right. But it won't be easy." As the discussions continued, Alex grew closer to Kale, their bond deepening with each passing day. He began teaching it simple human gestures, like waving or nodding, that could serve as universal signs of goodwill. In return, Kale taught Alex how to read subtle cues in its body language, helping him better understand its emotions. Together, they became ambassadors not just for their respective species, but for the idea that understanding could overcome fear. Still, not everyone supported the effort. Some factions refused to acknowledge the Vorak's intelligence, dismissing Alex's work as naive or dangerous. Others saw an opportunity to exploit the situation, offering deals that would grant them access to the planet in exchange for vague promises of protection. Nathan Blake remained vocal in his skepticism, often questioning whether trusting Kale was worth the risk. "They're predators, Carter," he argued during one heated debate. "No matter how smart they are, they'll always be wild animals at heart." Alex didn't argue. Instead, he invited Nathan to join him on the planet's surface the next day. Reluctantly, Nathan agreed, though his arms stayed crossed the entire time as they approached Kale. To everyone's surprise, the Vorak reacted calmly, tilting its head curiously as it studied Nathan. When Alex handed Nathan the translator and encouraged him to speak, the security officer hesitated before pressing a button. The device emitted a soft tone, and Cale responded with a low growl. Though the interaction was brief, Nathan left the encounter visibly shaken, though he refused to admit why. Meanwhile, the team discovered ancient ruins buried beneath the planet's surface. With Cale's guidance, they explored crumbling structures adorned with carvings that depicted the Vorak as noble protectors. These artifacts provided undeniable evidence of the species' once peaceful nature, further bolstering the case for diplomacy. As images of the ruins spread across the galaxy, public opinion shifted even more dramatically. People began to see the Vorak not as monsters, but as victims of prejudice and misunderstanding. By the time the final round of negotiations began, momentum was on their side. Representatives from multiple factions gathered aboard the orbital station, eager to witness the historic agreement. Alex stood alongside Cale, his hand resting lightly on the creature's side, as Commander Hayes and Ambassador Lyra outlined the terms of the treaty. It recognized the Vorak as intelligent beings with rights to their planet, while also establishing guidelines for future interactions between humans and other species. When the document was signed, applause erupted throughout the chamber. For Alex, the moment was bittersweet. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, there was hope, a fragile but powerful spark that could light the way toward a better future. As the ceremony ended, Alex looked at Cale, meeting its glowing eyes with a smile. "This is just the start," he said softly. "For all of us." Months passed, and the galaxy began to change in ways no one could have predicted. The treaty between humanity and the Vorak became a symbol of hope, inspiring other species to reconsider their relationships with misunderstood or marginalized groups. Word spread of Alex Carter and Cale, the unlikely pair who had shattered centuries of fear and mistrust. Their story was told in books, broadcasts, and even art across star systems, sparking conversations about cooperation, empathy, and the shared responsibility of protecting life. On the planet below, life returned to a kind of normalcy, but it was different now. The Vorak were no longer isolated creatures hiding in shadows. They had begun to emerge, cautiously interacting with humans under the guidance of Alex and Cale. Other members of the Vorak species approached the research team, curious but wary. With Cale's help, Alex introduced them to simple tools and gestures, laying the foundation for future communication. It wasn't easy. Some Voraks remained distrustful, their instincts shaped by generations of conflict. But progress was steady. Back on the orbital station, Commander Laura Hayes oversaw efforts to ensure the treaty's success. Trade routes were established, allowing limited access to the planet's resources while protecting its ecosystems. Scientists like Alina Meyer worked closely with the Vorak, studying their biology and behavior without interference. Even Nathan Blake softened over time, admitting privately to Alex that he'd underestimated the situation. "I still don't love the idea of working with predators," he said gruffly. "But if you can do it, maybe there's something to all this." For Alex, every day felt like a step toward something greater. He spent most of his time on the planet, deepening his bond with Cale and helping bridge the gap between their worlds. Together, they explored hidden corners of the landscape, uncovering more ruins and artifacts that revealed glimpses of the Vorak's ancient past. These discoveries painted a clearer picture of a once thriving civilization brought low by fear and violence, a reminder of what could happen if trust was broken again. One evening, as the twin suns cast long shadows across the rocky plains, Alex sat with Cale near the edge of a quiet stream. The water reflected the fading light, shimmering like liquid gold. Around them, the air was filled with the sounds of nature, the rustle of wind through tall grass, the distant call of unknown creatures. For the first time in months, Alex allowed himself to relax, letting the weight of responsibility slip away, if only for a moment. "You've changed everything," he said softly, looking at Cale. "Not just for me, but for everyone." People are starting to see that we don't have to be afraid of each other. Kale responded with a low rumble, tilting its massive head slightly. Its glowing eyes met Alex's, conveying a depth of emotion no words could capture. In that moment, Alex realized how much they had grown together, not as human and alien, but as friends. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them side by side. As night fell, Alex stood and stretched, gazing up at the stars. The orbital station hung in the sky like a beacon, its lights blinking faintly against the vast darkness. Somewhere out there, countless civilizations continued their journeys, some bound by old fears, others inspired by new possibilities. And here, on this small planet at the edge of the galaxy, two beings from vastly different worlds had forged a connection that transcended language, culture, and instinct. Alex smiled as he turned back to Kale. "We've come so far," he said, "but this is just the beginning. There's still so much to learn. From you, from your people, and from ourselves." Kale let out a soft growl, almost like a chuckle, before nudging Alex gently with its head. Together, they walked back toward the camp, their silhouettes blending into the twilight. Behind them, the planet seemed to breathe easier, as though it too recognized the significance of what had been achieved. In the end, Alex knew their journey was about more than treaties or alliances. It was about proving that even in a universe full of differences, understanding and friendship could take root and grow stronger with time. As he looked up at the endless expanse of stars, Alex felt a quiet certainty settle in his heart. Humanity didn't belong alone in the galaxy. They belonged alongside others, as equals, as partners, and as friends.